An indispensable tool for developers is the web browser. This is Firefox, but whatever browser you use will have similar tools. And you might be used to using VS Code or some other editor to write code in, and then you write it, and then you come over and you refresh it, and you see the changes, and that's all well and good. But a really important part is the developer tools in your browser. If you're looking at any web page, whether it's something you're working on or another person's website, and you want to see how it works, all you have to do is right-click and click Inspect. And that opens up the developer tools. Now, the specifics vary from browser to browser, but like I said, they're mostly the same. And I thought I would give a in-depth walkthrough of what they all do and how they're valuable and how I use them and my most used tools within them. So the first thing is you'll see the inspector. You'll see this, which lets you pick an element on the page. And I'm moving my mouse around and it's finding the element and highlighting it. So if I hover over this image, click it, it highlights it in the DOM tree. So this is the source code of the HTML. And you can see that's an image with the class profile photo. The source is this image. It's a relative URL. And it has an alt, Apple emoji representation of Brett smiling. Great. If I wanted to view that image, I could just click it. Maybe. That's interesting. Open link in new tab. There we go. So you can view that image directly. There's other ways to view it too. Like if you look in network, if I refresh, that image is there because it had to load it, and you can see the response here is that image. It has the dimensions, it has the MIME type and all that. But let's go back to the inspector for a second. Now you can actually just edit it right here. So we can get rid of this class and we lose the styling. You can press Command Z or Control Z and undo that. Here I could say change the text just to see how it looks. You can just edit it directly. Now, it's not going to save it and update it for other people to see it, but it's useful for previewing it and seeing what that's like. So, okay, that's nice. Let's say I wanted to see what this blue is, because I like that blue. Okay, it highlights it, and then now here in this bottom area, you see the inspector of that element. And on the left, you have all of the styles that could be applied from it. So through the tree of ancestry for the styles that get applied, here are the strongest and applied ones. Here are the most general ones. So you can see the color is 2D4 F62, which is, a color, the color that it is. But you can actually drag this around and change it directly. Except that's the hover style. So let's get rid of the hover style. There we go. That's because I was hovering over it when I clicked it in the inspector. But as you can see now, I'm dragging it around, changing it. I want to see what that looks. Maybe this would look nice as a pink button. Oh, that does look nice. So then I could take that and I could copy it. And, if I'm editing it, I could paste it in. So that's useful just to get a sense of things. Here's the color of the text. So, that looks pretty good with white. And you can see the background by default is this color, but I'm overwriting it here. You can actually uncheck styles to unapply them and see what it would have otherwise have inherited. You can change things like the size, like, okay, I only want them to be 60% of the width. Oh, that looks better. That doesn't look so good. But the interactive style changes are really great. And then when you refresh, styles are gone because they're not saved. Now, there are ways when you're developing locally to have those be saved, but I myself haven't done that. But there's also dark theme simulation. So if you don't want to change your entire OS between light and dark mode, you can do it just within the browser dev tools. That's in Firefox, but it's probably in the other ones. You can, I don't know what the copy, print simulation. So if you had specific print styles, you can do that. You can add back the hover pseudo selector so you can see what it looks like hovered without having to hover over it. Very important. Focus shows you the focus state. Focus visible shows you for accessibility what that looks like. So these pseudo selectors are really helpful, and you can even add new classes. So this area is really great for experimenting. Then over in this area, you see a lot of things like, okay, Flexbox CSS grid not being used, but you can see the box model. So the margin is auto, but we've got 12 pixels of padding. If we wanted to change that here, just drag it, we could change it. And that updates over here, and it tells you everything about it, right? It's using content box. This isn't really a complex style, so not too much to see there. You can see computed, which takes the ancestry tree of styles and then flattens them out and shows you everything that's applied from the font. So we could change the font over here to be Comic Sans MS, except that's not loading, so no funny jokes for us. Yeah, you can see what different fonts feel like, which is cool. So, and it tells you things you can change the style here, really interactive. So some of these are maybe Firefox only, some are in other ones, but generally a lot of these are the same. There's also an animation editor, which is super cool. That's hidden over here, but it's there. So that's the inspector. Really powerful, really useful, and great for experimenting, great for seeing how certain websites do something. Inspector is really important. Console is a JS console, so you can actually just run JavaScript here. Like you can say like fetch https example.com, and that runs a promise. It fails because of CORS reasons, but you can just write JavaScript, and maybe there's a library, maybe there's jQuery or whatever, and you can just run that code here, and that can be really helpful. If you have console.logs or console.debug warnings in your code, this is useful for debugging and seeing what's happening. Maybe you have a JavaScript heavy application or website and something's going wrong. You might see your errors in the console. So console's great. You can clear it with the trash. You can filter it by searching. You can show only certain levels of it. So yeah, it's just really, really helpful. The console's another, just really spend a lot of time there. Debugger, you can drop a debugger line in the JavaScript so that when it runs, it'll pause at a breakpoint, which I'm not going to show here, but really useful if you've used an IDE. Network is useful, use it a lot. I'm going to keep saying everything's useful. I'm really sorry in advance, but that shows everything that's been loaded. So from HTML, this is the actual HTML of the page. It's just rendering it here without the image. Information about the headers, so you can see the response it's HTML, and you can see this is useful for caching. There might be times where you're curious about, when was this cached or when's this from? And then the request data, so you can see what's being requested and who the user agent is. So this is very helpful. Cookies, request, you can, if it's like a JSON response, it'll sometimes have, the JSON. Here's the raw HTML. So that's HTML, and then these tags can filter it, so you can see we're loading this CSS from Google, which then loads fonts. Images, you can see them and preview them here, and it'll show you the response size of the content length. Really good for seeing what's happening, and maybe what's being happening on the network. And if you're building a JavaScript application that's making different network requests, you can use this to monitor it and see what's happening. So incredibly valuable for debugging. Style editor, that's interesting. Haven't used this much, so can't speak about it. Performance is great. If you're building something and you're why is this chugging and so slow? You record what happens and it tells you what's slow about it, and then you can use that to debug it and speed it up. Memory is great for that's memory usage, which is different than storage. In storage, you can see local storage. So if I were to go into the console, which you can also open with escape in any of these other views, if we did local storage dot set item name and Brett, press enter, you can see here the name was set to Brett. And that can be useful if you need to store certain settings for your application for people. There's an accessibility checker, which is really helpful. And there's things for service workers and other tools, but generally, yeah, this is just an overview of the dev tools. And the inspector, the console, really useful. Network, use that a lot. Really recommend getting familiar with your web browser developer tools. Oh, there's usually settings for them, so you can find settings, but also a really helpful one is the responsive editor, which a lot of them have. So let's reload the app, and you can see here that you can select different common sizes. So like, let's say I want to simulate the iPhone size, and I want to do it landscape, because everyone loves browsing this way. No one does, that's a joke. You can just set the user agent in case the website monitors user agent. You can even throttle the network speed to see how it loads over really slow behavior. So really, really helpful. You can take screenshots to share it with people. You can use touch events instead of clicks. I use this all the time, especially if you're doing like responsive web development, mobile first. The responsive tooling is really a key tool. And I know Chrome and Safari have this too. That's Firefox's and just generally web browser developer tools. Let me know if there's any tooling in there that's your favorite that I didn't cover, because I always have more to learn here and would love to learn. All right, thanks. Take care. See ya.